Thank you, Marian. And today it's a pleasure for me to introduce you some modern problems we are facing in the ecology of Lake Baikal. And because I'm very talkative, that is, I'm chatterbox, and I can be endless explaining myself because I love everything what I would like to present. So, yeah. First of all, I would like to introduce to you a kind of short, non-professional movie, and please compare the costs just nearby Bolshevikoty from one side, and the movie which I hope we will be able to look at. Звук не нужен. So that is also Baikal. But unfortunately, can you see the difference, right? So it's the most northern top of Lake Baikal, and maybe 10 or 15 years ago, that was amazing and very beautiful places, beaches, and one of the most favorite places of recreational activity of local citizens. And they have used to drink the water literally directly from the lake, and plenty of different kinds of fishes have been dwelling just nearby. Now the situation is completely reversal. People can't drink water from the lake, neither people nor cows and horses. And also, as distinct of very pure sandy and stony beaches of some northern part of Lake Baikal, you can see here such a very muddy and that's really odor. Other smell, yes, bad smelling substances. Now, давайте, это, видимо, что-то там все-таки глюки. Давайте мы перейдем уже к презентации. Yeah, ecological crisis. So I would like to concentrate myself on the ecological crisis in the coastal zone of Lake Baikal, and I'm representing here the results of investigations of over than 60 people, mostly working in our institute. Next slide, please. Oh, please come back. Thank you. Because you are here already several days, and because you have been able already to listen Professor Eugene Zilov's lecture, let me ask you a couple of questions, maybe 3 or 2, I don't know. So, could you please very quickly tell me 1, 2, 3, 5 main characters of Lake Baikal, what makes it one of the most famous lakes in the world? Okay, so this is my hand. First is oldest. Approximately how old? 25 to 30. But some peculiar scientists believe that it is even older, up to 70 millions of years. But peculiar scientists, to my mind, my personal mind. Okay, next.
Deepest.
Huh? Deepest. How deep?
1637.
Oh, that's nice. Right. So next.
Oxygenated.
Wow, that's not so peculiar.
There are the entire lake.
Up to entire lake. Okay, all of the lake. Of course, it is very deep. From that viewpoint, I agree. I do agree that the deepest lake oxygenated up to the bottom. That's peculiar. But still, many lakes are oxygenated up to the bottom. That's not so peculiar. Not so specific to Lake Baikal. Okay, come on.
Largest by volume.
By volume, yes, that is true. Volume of the water is. I don't want to ask you how much in tons or cubic kilometers, but I just would like to comparatively.
More than the Great Lakes combined.
Oh yes, that is true. But you're American and so easily. Usually Americans doesn't like that something is better. But nonetheless, that is true. I was not going to mention it because that is really true. That Lake Baikal holds the total amount of the water, even more than all 5 really great American lakes taken together. But this is not so. Usually, I'm sure that Eugene told you that more than 20% of unfrozen fresh waters of our planet. So next, so was it 3rd or 4th? I forgot. Okay, next.
It's one of the most clear places in the world, and I think only the Sargasso Sea has greater clarity.
Partly yes, partly not. And first you will see some slides showing that it is not anymore one of the most pure places in the world. And second, there are still lakes with such a high transparency. Oh, but come on, are there some ecologists among you?
Biologists?
Oh yes, biologists.
Large number of endemic species.
Oh yes. How large?
80%.
Oh no. I mean how many? Many, right? So more than 2,600 of animals dwelling Lake Baikal. Of them, about from 50 to 60% are being endemic. That is horrible. And also the most impressive number of endemics are invertebrates. Usually you know seals, maybe omul and so on, and then I forgot. But most of them are very peculiar invertebrates, and in case if we will be able, I can show you later on somewhere the real biodiversity of Lake Baikal. And maybe finally, maybe you will answer, but if you will combine the greatest depths of that lake, about 1,700 of meters from one side, and go down up to the bedrock, do you know the thickness of the sediments collected on the lake? No? About 7 kilometers. If you will combine 7 kilometers of the sediments and about 1,700 meters of the water column, it will make about 9 kilometers. That Baikal is the deepest land rift depression in the world. And could you imagine that 7 kilometers of sediments, they're keeping information about past climatic changes and of not only Baikal ecosystem, but also at least a part of the Eurasia in general. Sorry, so that was again just kind of small exam for you. And okay, let's go next slide. I would like just to listen, current phenomena are negative ecological processes in bentonic ecosystem of coastal zone of Lake Baikal, which we have discovered within last 5 years. First, we have discovered drastic changes of the algal belts and mass development of non-typical for Baikal filamentous algae, in particular of Spirogyra genus. I will not concentrate too much in biology of that genus because Katya Volkova will do it tomorrow. By the way, I would like to, Mary did it already, but anyway, we are kind of crew here. Katya Volkova, she is a PhD student, and soon I hope that she will have a PhD. And her major is biology of macrophytes of Lake Baikal in general, with special consideration of filamentous algae. Yulia Zvereva, she is investigating very wonderful spaghetti oligohyoid worms. You have seen probably in the splash zone, plenty of them. Very terribly interesting worms, such as strange ones, but still very interesting, and other oligohyoids. And also Ola Medvezhonkova, very nice family name. Please ask Thomas to translate because a very special and beautiful family name. And she is dealing and investigating male bentonic animals of splash zone of Lake Baikal. Quite complicated topic. Okay. Next one is development of giant algal accumulations on the coast. Next one, increasing abundance of bentonic blue-greens. Do you know what does it mean, blue-greens? Okay, what is this? Cyanobacteria. Why is it a bacteria? Oh, very easy. Why they are considered, they are thought to be, they are bacteria, not algae? Easy answer. Honestly, I don't believe that they are bacteria. Really. Are there any answers? Because they don't have nuclei. And like other bacterians, scientists thinking that just as they don't have nuclei, So, and that's why they're bacteria. But I don't believe it. I think, to my personal mind, and I'm not a specialist, but to my mind, that character has been developed evolutionary just independently. I don't know why. Okay? Of two types. That's very important. Next is mass disease and extinction of endemic Lubomir sponges in shallow waters. Next, gastropod cemeteries on the coast. I will show you several slides. Then changes or modifications of bentonic communities, including scalping, toxocenosis. Next one. That's quite easy. That's very easy. Fecal microbial pollution of interstitial and near bottom coastal waters. Of course, you know what does it mean, interstitial water. Usually, such kind of stuff is usually well investigated in oceanic ecosystems, not in the latter strain. But do you know what does it mean? For example, interstitial water.
Between sediment particles.
Right. So we are just, for example, visiting. Tomorrow we will see. It's quite easy. Sorry. So we are just making a pit on the beach, and all of the water which can come to the pit is interstitial. The water which is located between the sand particles. Right. No, just on that. And improper purification of the waste water, all the lake around. So generally that is the main negative ecological processes which we have described and discovered within the last 5 years. So next slide please. Now we will start from the drastic changes of the algal belts and mass development of non-typical spirogyra, of non-typical macrophytes. Next slide please. Okay, that is just imagine you are just looking to spirogyra under the light microscope. That's a typical picture. And spirogyra. Here you can see. What do you see? What is this? Cell walls, right? And what about this one? Chloroplast. So can you see that it is like a spiral? That's why spirogyra. And Katya will show you that a number of chloroplasts might be different. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, I don't know how many else. Next slide. So this is just a picture which I took in 2012, just opposite of this building over there. That is about 1.5 meters. All of the and that photo was taken in November of 2012, and all of the rocks, underwater rocks, have been covered by such a carpet of filamentous algae. When we have analyzed them under the light microscope, it was 100% of spirogyra. Why it is so unusual? Because there is a very famous in Russia scientist, at least in Siberia, Dr. Ishboldina, and she has been investigating macrophytes of Lake Baikal within 50 years. And she told that never before spirogyra could exist in such a mass abundance. 1, 2 filaments in open part of the lake. She could find 1, 2, 3 filaments per sample. And it was really happiness for her because it was something new. Now spirogyra is a real host of shallow water zone ecosystem. Next slide. It's almost the same. And next slide. Here you can see the slide which was taken at the same place, right? About 5 to 7 years before. Rocks are more or less free of macrophytes. Still there are some macrophytes, but picture is completely different, right? So next slide. And unfortunately we have not been able to investigate precisely for shortage of money the spirogyra distribution and other aspects of coastal zone ecology previously. But in 2013 and 2014 our former director gave us a big ship and about 20 people as expedition members, and we have within 3 or 4 weeks we have been trying to investigate the distribution of spirogyra around the coastal line of Lake Baikal. And the results we have obtained at that time, they was really amazing and impressive. More than 50%, so by such kind of points, dots, circles, we have indicated the areas with the mass development of spirogyra. What does it mean? It means that the percentage of площадь проективного покрытия. Projective area, more than 90% covered by Spirogera. So that kind of spots are quite numerous, and more than 50% of Lake Baikal coastal line has been covered by Spirogera. It means again that the Spirogera became a new host of Lake Baikal. And if there is no sign, for example here, it means that no Spirogera has been found at that time. And only this portion of the coastal line of Lake Baikal remains to be more or less pure and remains to be at that time as a representative of real Baikal. It's a little bit complicated for me to explain, very sorry. All other coasts have been covered by Spirogera. Okay, next slide. Okay, I will. Maybe Katya will concentrate on the data. It's a quantitative characteristics of Spirogera in the coastal area of Lake Baikal. Next slide. So, and that map is showing to you, representing the places with the giant wash-ups of the algal wash-ups. Severobaikals, most northern top of Lake Baikal. Then this is a Chiverkuy Bay here, Barguzin Bay, and also Maloy Mori Strait, and the most southern top of Lake Baikal. And by different symbols, we have indicated different, different compounds of that coastal accumulated material. Next slide. So let us consider, in particular, first this place, so Chiverkuy Bay. Next slide. So that is a typical picture you can see in the coast, along the coast of the Chiverkuy Bay during the fishing. And it is very regular phenomenon. Hundreds of the cars are located in the very narrow beach, and including the splash zone. Of course, no toilets, no something like, I don't know. And fishermen are staying here constantly and permanently within months, 1 month and a half, even sometimes 2 months. And as a result, the next slide, as a result we can see a huge amount of the wash-ups, mainly consisting of higher water plants like Elodea canadensis and others. Next slide. So this is more popular place here in Barguzin Bay, southern coast of Barguzin Bay. Next slide. When 2 years ago we came to that very beautiful village of Maximica, that is sandy beach, and 5-7 years ago that was one of the favorite recreation places for the citizens, local citizens in Buryatia. But now you can see that was that is a quite typical picture, and even now this year, that is again the typical picture of the coastal line located opposite of that village. Next slide. And here, I don't think that I should go into details. Spirogera up to 20%, nostoc and higher plants 18%. All such kind of data we have, of course. Next slide. And even more. Next. And next. And one more. Okay. Development of giant algal accumulation on the coast I have already introduced, and now increasing abundance of benthic blue-greens of 2 types. Next slide. So that phenomenon has been discovered only during last 3 years, and it is quite probably one of the most negative, because we are speaking about so-called bentonic free-living cyanoprokaryotes, cyanobacterians. I think that you will understand why I call them free-living. They became dominant in many areas of coastal zone within a couple of years only. And probably, if you like, I will even show you tomorrow some patches of the blue-greens. And, okay, next slide. Originally, we have found huge amount of coastal accumulated material, mostly consisting of blue-greens in this particular area, most western coast of Barguzin Bay. Next slide. Here you can see again algal wash-ups, and next slide. And here underwater picture and light microscopical picture of Polypotrix genus. You can see here, and heterocysts are located here. So that kind of blue-greens, they are able to fix atmospheric nitrogen. Next slide. And here you can see images again taken last year by me, just nearby here. And on the rocks in the shoreline, during the August and September, you could see such a huge and big spots, 100% of which consisting of cyanoprokaryotes or blue-greens. And last winter, our scientists from Limnological Institute, in collaboration with some Moscow scientists, they have checked that kind of blue-greens from the viewpoint of cyanotoxins. They do produce cyanotoxins of very dangerous type, and that is a saxitoxin which has a neuroparalytic influence. It means that if, of course we don't know, but in case if occasionally you will drink the water from the coastal line, and occasionally such a bentonic algae, I don't know in which quantity, can enter your stomach, what will happen, no one knows. But potentially it is very dangerous negative ecological phenomena which we have discovered. Actually, that representative of Polypotrix genus have been quite widely distributed along the coastal line of Lake Baikal at the depth of 2-3 meters before by very minor quantity. So such kind of story, like mass development of free-living Polypotrix species in the shoreline, that's a completely new phenomena for the ecosystem of shallow water zone. Next slide. And this is from the negative viewpoint, the model case of eutrophication pollution of Lake Baikal, which is happening in Severbaikalsk city coast. I have shown already that video was taken exactly from that place. Next slide. Okay, my students are here, some of them, and in 2013 we just came on the coast, and we have it was, you know, very special feelings, because just 100 meters away from the coastal line we felt that odor, very terrible, like from the village toilets. And when we came on the coast, it was again quite terrible picture like that, and we didn't know at the time what does it mean. Just I took a piece of that material and went back to the ship under the light, my favorite light microscope, and I was shocked. What was it? What do you think? Spirogyra. 97 to 99% of that mass was represented by Spirogyra. And of course we have been trying to measure and quantify that kind of substances. Next slide. And can you see it could it could be subdivided into several layers. For example, here, within 10 to 15 meters, you could see such a jelly-like masses, and then maybe several dozens of meters away to the lake, towards the lake proper, you could see very high concentration of Spirogyra, and finally part of that jelly mass by storm excavated and washed up to the coast. If we will just count that part of the Spirogyra conglomerations, we could see that from 5 to 7 meters in the wides, right? From 2 to 100 centimeters thick, and the totally we have counted up to 90 kilograms per square meter, and the total amount was about 14,000 tons, just only washed up Spirogyra masses. Next slide. That is the same, not the same area, same of that. Very, so 20 years ago that was very beautiful bay, but now it is completely covered year by year, covered by such kind of huge amount of Spirogyra developed. Next slide. So okay, you can. I like lectures, very primitive lectures, so naturalistic ones. Okay. I don't like so much statistical methods or modeling. I like to present kind of natural history of the water body. Sorry about that. Next slide. Well, what was the reason of that negative ecological phenomenon in the northern part of Baikal? So there is a Severbaikalsk city here, about 20,000 citizens, and they have a sewage purification system, and part of the Russian railway, so-called BAM, very famous, originally very famous, is проходит через, goes through, runs through. Okay, that runs through that city. And could you imagine about 5 or and there are 2 depots in that city which are washing the railway cars. And one so-called clever man, we don't know who was that, he was just considering to join how to say, промышленные сточные воды, industrial wastewaters, to join to the wastewaters of the city. And as a result, active silt has been completely died and destroyed, and that kind of sewage water intervention, I call it intervention, has been happening every week, almost every week within several years. And that water is very rich by nutrients, and when we have made just a simple hydrochemical analysis, we have found that average concentration of, for example, of anorganic phosphorus in sewage water was as high as 6 to 7 milligrams per liter. And in the water of the river which enters Baikal in 1.5 kilometers away, after that sewage opens, it was less than 1 microgram. No, it was, yes, 3 micrograms per liter. It makes more than I don't know, almost 3,000 times more than natural concentration of the water of Tia River. And you know, according to Dr. Sakirko, she has counted that only 6 tons of PO4 per year is contributed by Severobaikal city. But for oligotrophic ecosystem of coastal zone of Severobaikal city is a huge amount of nutrients, of course. And that is the only reason why such kind of huge amounts of Spirogera has been developed in that place. Next slide. So, mass disease and extinction of endemic sponges of Lake Baikal, Lyubomirsky family. Next slide. Okay, here you can see the typical picture of Baikal sponge. Let me ask you, sponge, what does it mean? Sponge, is it a plant or animal? Are you sure? And what about that green one and branchy one? Oh, very clever answer, right. But why is that green? Huh? Some algae do cover them, but that's not an answer. Some diatoms are really covering the sponges. That's quite usual. But why is that green? By the way, diatoms are like a milky chocolate by color. Well, very easy answer. Because they have endosymbiotic algae of zoochlorella. Okay, and again, approximately at 2010, 2011, some researchers, they have reported very strange phenomena happening with Baikal sponges. Why is that sponges are very important? If you will take, I don't know, is it one square meter or not? If you will take such a 1 square meter of the Baikal bottom, okay, completely covered by such kind of sponges, could you imagine how many cubic meters of the water daily the 1 square meter of bottom covered by sponges could filtrate? 17 to 18 cubic meters. It means 17 to 18 tons per day. And now that kind of natural filters of the coastal ecosystem became almost totally extinct. There are 3 ecological forms of the sponges: branched ones, then encrusting ones, and such a globular ones. We have found that all ecological forms are either ill or die. And when we took the ill part of the sponge, you can see it here, and then analyze them under the microscope, we have found another type of blue greens. that kind of the blue-greens, I call them saprophytic. And Marin, by the way, it is really saprophytic blue-greens. Now it is proven. So that was a little bit, but no problem. And that blue-greens belongs to Formydium genus. And again, as distinct of previous ones, they are not able to fix nitrogen. Please, how to say, memorize it. And they are not able to fix atmospheric nitrogen, and are covering the yield sponges sometimes from 10 up to 90% of the total surface of the body sponge. And again, Dr. Billig from our institute, she has discovered that that kind of blue-greens are also producing very hard and toxic for humans toxins, cyanotoxins. Okay, next slide. Here you can see the same phenomena, just related to the encrusting sponges here. And what is interesting, the illness is very frequently starting from the osculums. You know osculums, right? It's special organs to filtrate water. And once something has happened with the sponge body, and blue-greens immediately occupy the damaged spot, and then that area became broader and broader and broader, and sponges step by step dying. Next slide. I like that slide, which has been made by one Netherlands underwater photographer, Sven Inken, who has helped us to dive 2 years ago. And why it is so good slide? Because all stages of degradation of Baikal branch sponges can be visible, are quite visible here. In this part of the slide, you can see more or less healthy sponges with smooth and green surface. Here, I call them the rings of death. You can see such kind of dark red spots, which are consisting completely 100% consisting of blue-greens. And finally here you can see the sponges which are partly completely died, and very soon that part of the sponge due to the waves will break and go down. And when we have been taking such kind of sponges on the board of the ship, the smell was really bad. It was really odor like from the died animals. Okay, what is happening? I'm sure now that something, the reasons are of course not known yet, but something is happening. Probably it's due to some changes in the physiological relations between sponge cells and algal symbionts at the physiological level. Something happening, and sponge became destroyed. Okay. Afterwards, maybe on the next slide, could you please show me the next slide? Okay, maybe next and next, and one more, and one more. Yes. When we took syringes and just took the water for hydrochemical analysis, just bottom water, and the water which is very close to the dying bodies of the sponges, we have found such kind of concentration of phosphates. Okay? It means that when sponges are dying, by the way, they are most numerous component of zoobenthos of Lake Baikal. When they are dying, they are extracting quite a lot of nutrients by themselves, including phosphates and nitrates. And the blue-greens in this particular case, why they are developing? So, let me ask you, do you remember that blue-greens occupying the sponges, are they able to fix nitrogen or not? Okay, in such case, they might be limited by, their development might be limited by, okay, if they cannot fix atmospheric nitrogen. In such case, nitrogen may limit their development. And when the sponge is dying, phosphates and nitrates are coming to the water around, and probably they gave an impulse to mass development of that kind of blue-greens. Vice versa, let me ask you, In case if so-called free-living blue-greens are able to fix nitrogen, what could limit them, their development? Right. Why so slowly and of course, you're right. So that's why, you know, we can say, okay, someone of you can ask me in the future, okay, what kind of nutrient is limiting development of macrophytes of coastal zone of Lake Baikal? I can't answer, because I think that for some particular macrophyte group, the answer would be different. Okay, now please return back for several slides. Yeah, stop and next one. Okay, can you feel the difference between those slides? See, here you can, oh, by the way, all of the slides have been made again here in the region of Bolshoi-Koty area, and that kind of live and kicking sponges you could see just opposite of biological station, for example, 5 to 7 years ago. And have you ever tasted the smell of the sponges, of Baikal sponges? No? Please do that. You will never forget. It's no, positively. I mean alive ones, of course. That's like a channel number, I don't know what. Which number? Yes, that is really true. Because when they're alive and kicking, they're smelling very specifically. It's impossible to explain by words. You should taste it. Okay? And in case if the sponge became ill, it stops to smell. Okay? So the sponges have been still full by smell, full by channel, number I don't know what, and live and kicking, and with very healthy and nice external surface. Next slide. Okay, can you see? Nothing is evidencing about illness. Next slide. And the next one we have already discussed about. By the way, why I like this slide as well, because both types of the blue-greens are represented here. So-called saprophytic blue-greens and mass development of free-living cyanoprokaryotes. Both of them, as I told you, according to Dr. Belik, are able to produce huge amount of cyanotoxins. Okay, now let me ask you, what kind of similarities and differences you can find between such kind of processes I have described for coastal zone of Lake Baikal from one side, and for your favorite, and maybe my favorite too, Great American Lakes. What is similar, what is different? Later on I will tell you, and I will, even if you will be able, I will show you the argumentation why I think that all of the processes, including the mass death of sponges, is related exactly to eutrophication. But eutrophication in Lake Baikal and in average lakes of Eurasia, and even, but Great American Lakes, it is quite different story. Do you know what was the main mistake of the limnologists of our institute, and including limnologists of very famous limnologists of Irkutsk State University? They have been thinking that Baikal is so huge that it could never be influenced by eutrophication. Theoretically, they have counted the total amount of non-organic phosphorus is really very huge. I forgot, but maybe 300,000 tons in all of volume of Lake Baikal waters. And they're considering that it is necessary too huge amount of phosphorus immediately, entering to the pelagic zone in order to have some small changes in the phosphate concentration in all of the water column. What was the mistake? Is it correct pattern of thinking? Why? Why?
The pelagic zone isn't what's eutrophying, it's the littoral zone.
Yes, that is true, but why they have made such a mistake? Because very famous, I will not mention of course their names, but they have been considering that Baikal will never be eutrophied. Because they have been thinking, I forgot again how many railway cars simultaneously of phosphates should be put down to Baikal ecosystem in order to change a little bit hydrochemical parameters. But that's purely, purely theoretical situation, never existing in any ecosystem, right? Eutrophication in Baikal is really huge and water is really still pure. But you will never find any typical for average lakes characters of eutrophication, such as increasing of phosphate concentration, of nitrate concentration in the pelagic zone. That is very difficult to found, right? Instead of that, even here at Bolshevik area, you can see that all of the toilets and all of the hotels in Listranka, they are not equipped by any sewage purification water systems. And all of the wastes are coming through the bottom, through the ground, quite narrow amount of the ground, and gradually entering through that filter to the coastal zone from the bottom. That's why you will never detect it from the surface. Okay? Next slide. By the way, I forgot the question. What is the... Okay, I have explained by myself. Very sorry. What about the Great American Lakes? What is typical character of eutrophication? What's going first?
See the increase of nitrate and phosphate.
Right, again through the improperly purified wastewaters made or from agriculture. Then it's entering to the ecosystem, and what happened? What's happening? Algae. What kind of algae? At the beginning. At the beginning. Usually planktonic, right? But what kind of? Cyanobacteria, that's the second stage. At the beginning, usually greens are abundantly developing, and maybe, okay, do you remember, do you know that case in Toledo City? Toledo City, located... Toledo. That was incredible when 200,000 people at once stopped to drink and to use pipe water. Because the first blooming of greens was detected there at 2007. Greens. And in 2015, explosive development of blue greens. And that was very poisonous, blue greens producing cyanotoxins, very dangerous for health. And citizens of the Toledo city, it was prohibited for them even to take a shower. And poor people, they have been, migrating to the neighboring cities in order to buy the bottle of drinking water. I don't know what about now. Maybe something has changed.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Now here you can see Listranka city, and you have seen so-called beautiful hotels on that coast. And I'm here since 1980s. And if we will go back 25 years or 30 years ago, so the village was quite similar to Bolsheviki. It was very nice and beautiful village with such a very special wooden houses and so on and so forth. But since probably 2000, beginning of our century, like mushrooms, hotels became to be constructed, and no any sewage waters at all. Okay, and here you can see a very beautiful picture of the portion of the bottom, very typical for Listyanichny Bay. You can see forests of branch sponges, okay, and also encrusting sponges, and no algae at all, almost, no filamentous algae. And it was a kind of paradise for the branched Lubomir sponges about 10 years ago, but now, according to Dr. Hanaev from our institute, that bay is completely died from the viewpoint of sponges. All sponges are completely dyed, and the surface you even can see the rocky bottom. It is completely covered by the such thick carpet of mixture of filamentous algae, Ulotrix and Spirogyra. And again, still our how to say, our representative of Natural Protection Ministry, they are discussing, oh, scientists are wrong. They're just citing the problems because they need more money. They're just alarm people, you know, making alarm. But okay, please, of course, if you will just look at from the coast of Lake of Vistranka, just on the external surface, of course, everything is fine. Water is more or less fine, and it is transparent, and even some crazy people are still drinking that water. I'm always telling them, don't drink that water, please. Don't give that water to your babies. But I can't stay permanently and tell to everyone. Anyways, they're drinking, and then quite a lot of problems with, related to the stomach infections they're having. But the bottom and biocyanosis and communities of that rocky bottom is completely different, absolutely different, you know? Not only from the viewpoint of sponges, but also from the viewpoint of macrophytes and from the viewpoint of other representatives of benthonic communities. Next slide. So, is it interesting to you to know the answer to the question? Yeah. To me too. So let us subdivide the problem. In case if we are talking about the macrophytes, well, okay, could you imagine that within last 10 years, humans are entering, due to human activity, huge amount of phosphorus and nitrates is permanently entering the coastal ecosystem of Lake Baikal. Theoretically, if our government will provide us enough money to construct the perfect sewage water purification systems, if everywhere the people will stop and create bio-toilets and so on and so forth, how many years should pass from that theoretical viewpoint in order to remove the Spirogyra, that Baikal could remove Spirogyra at all? No one knows. Probably 5 years, 10 years, and we always need to remove the phosphates which have been already entered to Lake Baikal. And that is one point. So I don't know. What shall we do in order to stop Spirogyra? Even it's theoretical. I think that I'm very pessimistic from that viewpoint. I don't think that we will have any positive processes, positive effects within maybe next 5 to 10 years. Next slide. Oh yes, next slide. Okay, coming back to sponges. According to the scientists, can you see here thicker parts and thinner parts, thicker parts and thinner parts? That's analogous to three rings. According to some ecologists, sponges are growing, so growth ratio, average growth ratio of those animals is about 1 centimeter per year. If the average size length of the branch sponge is about 50 centimeters, can you count how old is the sponge? 50 years, right? And in many cases, even here, we have had sponges like maybe 1.5 meters, branched ones. If they're extinct, and theoretically everything what is influencing them until death will be stopped, again we will need about at least 50 years for sponges needs about 50 years to be recovered. Next slide. Okay, that is just a slide. Next slide. In 2 years ago, do you remember the photographs of mass amounts of Spirogyra in the North Park? That is the same region of Lake Baikal, the most northern part of Lake Baikal, and from spring to autumn of 2014, we have discovered billions of dyed mollusks laying on the sandy beaches of northern Baikal. Next slide, and even next. There are several working hypotheses explaining why it has happened, but for sure I can't answer right now, okay? But I would like to underline that symmetries of diet gastropods have been correlated to the area of the Severobaikali's wastewater distribution. At least I can state that it was in correlation of influence of the waters. And fecal microbiological pollution. I'm almost close to the end. And fecal microbiological pollution, next slide. Yeah, that is not fecal microbiological pollution. That is, that is a Russian slide, but what we have found more, of course you know the danger of chlororganic contaminants for ecosystem, which can be preserved more than 100 years in some certain ecosystems, right? So we have found in the wastewaters of Severobaikal city very specific and high amounts of chlororganic substances, polychlorine biphenyls, and the same type of the chlororganic contaminants have been found by us also in the interstitial waters of the coastal zone. I think that this is one of the most dangerous negative ecological phenomena we have described, because when we have discussed with Marian the problem, do you agree with me if I will tell you that the whole development of toxicology right now is quite strange? Because toxicology, they are taking one species of crustacea, for example Daphnia, and one poisonous substance, and then counting the lethal concentration of one substance. Is it true? No? No. Okay.
Well, there can be many interacting with each other, many toxins interacting with each other, and those kind of effects on species is unknown. Hard to
Yes.
measure.
And very clever people from Spain, United States and Europe, they have published in 2009 the papers which are describing the effect of so-called cocktail effect of different contaminants. And they have used, again I forgot the English term, the frog babies.
Tadpoles.
Tadpoles?
Tadpoles.
Tadpoles, okay. And when they used only single contaminant, the concentration was really high to kill all of the babies, right? But when they used simultaneously 1, 2, 3, 5 chlororganic contaminants taken together, the concentrations have been maybe 1 or 2 order magnitudes lower, and all of the frog babies would die. So that is a potentially very, very, dangerous ecological phenomena. And one of the working hypotheses why the sponges are dying, including that bay, is a very small concentration of such kind of substances. By the way, I asked your teachers in the beginning of our meeting whether or not you have been announced about danger of the ticks. Ticks? You know, but there are quite a lot of them, especially during the May and June season, even now. After every excursion, please watch yourself carefully. Because they can, they can provide some very dangerous infection. But the people, in order to avoid the danger, they are massively using the very special types of chlororganic substances everywhere along the coast. In our biological station, and also here in the biological station, several men are having a very special suits. Every spring they're spreading such a very poisonous substances which can be preserved in the ecosystems for centuries. And even in the Western countries and even in the United States, there are no very precise and good standards what is dangerous, what is not. And the question of concentration of that kind of substances in the human bodies is completely not investigated. can you, how to say, feel the potential danger? That's why the amount of cancer people in this particular area and also in Irkutsk city is growing very rapidly. I have seen the graphs in the oncological center. That is one of the reasons, maybe. And I have checked the type of the fluororganic contaminant which have been used in our biological station. Could you imagine what was it? It was extremely dangerous for fishes, extremely dangerous for the insects, and so-called medium dangerous, как сказать, среднеопасный? Moderate danger for human being. But when I asked qualified experts from Moscow, they told, oh, we don't know yet what kind of effect that substance could have for the human body, but we will try to understand it. And even in Europe, they couldn't detect even the chlororganic compounds. Okay, next slide. And that is exactly fecal contamination everywhere around the Lake Baikal. The concentration of fecal indicating bacteria is in some areas 1 order, in some areas 2 orders, in some areas 3 and 4 orders of magnitude higher than the regulated limits. For all over the coastal line of Lake Baikal. And the next slide, and I don't want to read the long conclusion. So, unfortunately, just I would like to summarize. I have no doubts that Baikal is now underwent very serious negative effects, and coastal line of Lake Baikal is really experiencing very rapid negative changes. And some collaborators of mine, for example, Japanese professor, she is a president of Japanese Society of Limnology. She has been just 1 month ago here, and we have detected concentration of ammonium more than 10 milligrams per liter in the rivers of Listvenka town. That is terrible concentration. And we have also analyzed the sediments in the river mouths, and could imagine the concentration of carbon and nitrogen. It was even higher than in the most polluted lagoons, in the sediments of the most polluted lagoons of Japan. That's a reality. So, but the problem is that our government, local government, and even the central government, and even the scientists in Irkutsk, they don't listen to us. They don't want to understand, because water is pure. Still, there is no. We can't detect the typical, so-called typical typical eutrophication characters in the coastal zone of, even in the coastal zone of Lake Baikal. But bell is jingling more and more and more. Nina Bondarenko, Professor Bondarenko, she has detected even in the pelagic zone quite significant changes, and in this area, and it will be published quite soon, in area of Listvenka city, Bolshoi city, the amount of small-sized phytoplankton, which is non-endemic to Baikal, is drastically increasing year by year, from spring to autumn. That is also one of the very, sharp evidence of eutrophication. So, eutrophication, unfortunately, does exist in at least in the coastal line of Lake Baikal in many areas. And such phenomenon like sponges, it's a trans-Baikalian phenomenon, which is still in progress. Even last June, we have collected sponges from 30 to 100% of the total amount of branch sponges have been found either ill or damaged. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention, and sorry that lecture was a little bit longer than you have expected probably, but okay, anyway, that is the truth about the ecology, current ecology of coastal zone of Lake Baikal. Thank you.